Hello friends, and welcome back to another episode. In this episode, I'd like to talk about the iPhone and what was the game changer for the industry at large. And that was on October 4, 2011, was the announcement or the unveiling of the iPhone 4S. And I had some experience with iPhones previous to that, and I was never really impressed with the image quality. I knew that it couldn't rival a DSLR. But the 4S really changed the game. The 4S, the image quality was absolutely amazing. So on October 4, 2011, the industry was tipped upside down as far as image quality from a smartphone. So I want to talk about their campaign that's airing now. I'm seeing it on prime time. It's called Shot on iPhone. So again, now we're about 5 years into the iPhone coming of age. Again, October of 11. And we're approaching in a couple months October of 16. So we've had a few iterations since the 4S, and the image quality is amazing. And I'm seeing here for the first time too, I'm seeing space, the sense of space in these photographs. And we touched on this previously, where the ability to capture the sense of space is kind of relative or linear with sensor size, whether it be a piece of film or a sensor. The larger you go in sensor, the more it can capture the sense of space. And I talked about this briefly about Ansel Adams going from a Kodak Brownie camera to the 8x10. It was a eureka moment for him when he discovered that he could capture Yosemite on a 8x10, whereas before he couldn't on a Kodak Brownie. But now we're at the point where the iPhone can sense space. And it's really amazing. You have to give Apple credit where credit is due, because they've really accomplished something quite historic. Okay, so I would rival this campaign with that of the January 22, 1984, during the airing of Super Bowl 18, when they introduced the Apple Macintosh. When the theme was 1984, and that was a very historic advertising campaign, right? It's still legendary. And I think this is going to rival that, because I'm going to make a few points in this video. So let's go on. We talked about October 4, 2011, and the 4S being the game changer. Okay, so we talk about smartphones and their ability to multitask, right? Or I shouldn't say multitask in the process of running concurrent threads. What I mean basically is you have multiple uses. So flight aware, so you can track flights. Your friend is on the flight. You can see where your friend is or your family member. You can track in nearly real time. You can see where it's like superimposed over a country, and you can see exactly where they are. I just installed a bubble level. I had to measure something recently. Installed the bubble level, put it on a piece of steel. It gave me the measurement, 13.6 degrees. I didn't have to go out to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy some specialty apparatus. A free app on my smartphone gave me my 13.6 degrees on my bubble. You can use it to level the stove. Sometimes you try to cook something and you'll see the cake or the grease, like some olive oil in your pan. It collects to one side. A free app on your smartphone, you level your stove. So games, camera, video, email, it's just such a handy tool, and it's about $700. Top of the line is $700, okay? So when you talk about a standalone camera, so if that can do excellent photography, excellent videography, and all these multiple uses for $700, so you have to ask yourself, if you're the CEO, you're on the board of a camera company, where do you have to be price-wise to compete with this? And ideally, okay, if this phone can do all that, plus take pictures and video, you got to be somewhere around $400 to $500 if you're going to compete. Okay, so and the camera manufacturers have missed that. The cameras have gone. They were at that price point from 2008 to 2010, and the costs have just skyrocketed. The new D500, $2,500. The lens is $1,000. It was at $3,500 January of this year. They discounted it to $3,000. I just checked; it's down to $2,500. So they've shaved $1,000 off the price of this camera in 7 months. And why? They're not feeling charitable. It's because the camera isn't selling. Okay, so let's go on. So again, you have a $700 apparatus that can do multiple things, and a $3,500 camera that can just take pictures and videos. It's a no-brainer. People are opting for the $700 device that can do everything. Okay. Uh, okay. So let's see. We covered the D500 Canon now. Canon's got a new 30 meg, the Mark IV 5D Mark IV. It's just $3,500 body, 30 megapixels. You're going to need a $1,500, $2,000 lens to resolve the images. So now we're upwards of $5,500 for a full frame. Okay, $3,500 for APS-C, $5,500 for full frame. It's growing out of control. Okay. So my point is this: going back to, if you're going to compete, if the camera manufacturers, okay, Samsung and Apple are crushing Nikon and Canon, just taking them to the cleaners, because when people used to buy cameras, they're not buying cameras anymore. They're just using their smartphones. Smartphones are in the process of replacing cameras. So you figure if the board, or if the chairman had any common sense whatsoever, they need to understand the sweet spot for pricing is about $400 to $500 if they're going to sell. And they're not. Again, I'm repeating myself. They've gone the opposite way. They're just, it's almost like they're trying to scuttle the company on the shoals of history. I mean, what better way to scuttle a company if you know you have to compete with a $700 smartphone, right? You're the chairman of a company and you're presented with competing with a $700 smartphone. You're going to come up with a $3,500 camera or $5,500 camera. Hello, you kind of need to go the other way, okay? So sales are down. I just did some research. Sales are at 1/3. Camera sales are at 1/3 of what they were in 2010. But I'm going back to where you had the D3000, D5000, D3100. These cameras were about $500 body and lens, and the photo sites were large enough that consumer level glass could resolve the image. You got one of my favorite shoots I've ever done was done on a D3100 and a 51.8. $500. It was my second favorite shoot of all time, was done on a Nikon D3100. $300 body, $200 lens. I had $500 into the shoot, camera and lens. $500. And that's when cameras were selling. They were selling from 2008 to 2010 because they were affordable. Okay? Now, to illustrate a point, make my point, a friend of mine, a soldier friend of mine, more like really an acquaintance, he's a fellow soldier. He and his wife just had a child, and he was showing me some images of the newborn baby. Okay, so I went in, again, being a photographer, curiosity, I went into the details and looked at the EXIF data. Okay, now this is a professional photographer, female, and she does this for a living. She does it 9 to 5. This is her day job. I looked in the EXIF data. She's using an APS-C camera. So this is where we talk about the red flags going up, or the balloons going up in the boardrooms of these camera companies, Nikon and Canon. If they were doing any homework, any street level intelligence collection, they would know. They would be aware of the situation that not only have they priced out the enthusiasts, they're squeezing out the enthusiasts out of the APS-C and full frame market. They're actually at the point now of squeezing out the professionals, the absolute professionals who do this on a day-to-day job, as a day-to-day job. They're not even opting for a full frame. I shouldn't say all, of course it's not all, but this one newborn photographer, she's a case in point. She's not even going full frame. It's too expensive for her. She's going APS-C. So if the camera companies are not only are they squeezing out the enthusiast, they're now squeezing out the professional. So the obvious question, the 600-pound gorilla in the room is, then who's buying the cameras? And the answer is not too many people, because that's why they have discounted the D500 from $3,500 to $3,000 to $2,500. And again, they're in the wrong spot. They need to be at the $400 and $500 price range. So my point is, I'm forecasting now the demise of Nikon and Canon, because years ago they should have stayed in the 400. They saw it again. October 4, 2011 was the shot across the bow. That was the wake-up call to them that, oh my God, we have to compete with a $700 device. That's where we need to be. It can do it can do photography and videography, plus all this other stuff for $700. That means we, the camera manufacturers, need to have these cameras around $400, $500 to compete. Totally missed the boat. Totally missed the boat. So they're going to end up like the Kodak and the Polaroid, Nikon and Canon. They're going to be crushed under the wheels of history. And they're already dead. The body is dead. We're just waiting for it to get cold. Again, camera sales are in the tank. And what are they offering? $3,500, $5,500 cameras, completely detached from reality. So I want to congratulate Apple on their ad campaign. They shot on iPhone where they're showing videos and photographs, because they're stellar. They're absolutely brilliant, beautiful photographs and videos. You got to give credit where credit is due. And again, they're crushing Nikon and Canon, and Nikon and Canon absolutely deserve it. They're just, I'm just speechless. I'm really speechless how these boards of directors can be so asleep as to be offering $5,500 cameras when the smartphone makers are putting these out at $700. It's just, and when the pro shooters aren't even buying full frame, and you're detached from that market research, are they doing any type of market research or intel collection on the street, asking photographers, hey, what are you shooting? Why are you shooting this? Blah blah blah. It's there. They can get it. They just choose not to. So, again, my hat's off to Apple. Congratulations. It's a fantastic ad campaign, and I wish you well. So, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.